how horrific it would be if the person you love died and then an alien showed up wearing their skin.
Hi, I am Kat,
And I am Gabe, and we
and
are
we,
the
the
ghouls next
ghouls
door,
next door.
talking about spooky stuff and really sad stuff.
Yes,
Yeah.
look at us do it. We are so good at say words.
Yes.
We are so human.
Yep. Definitely human, very human in our ways and behaviors.
Look at my face is getting used to smiles.
But we
Welcome.
are The Girls Next Door, a media literacy show from a horror lens where we explore the real life historical, psychological, emotional reasonings behind our cinematic fears. And today's episode, as part of our Tainted Love series, has us asking, how horrific it would be if the person you love died and then an alien showed up wearing their skin.
Yeah.
Pretty sad.
Yeah, like
Pretty
big
rough.
sad. And then also like there was so much comedy in it as well, but that also like kind of made it like, oh, why? I don't want to
Hmm.
laugh right now.
Yeah.
We're all dealing with this thing that we're with, like, oof. It was like heavy and funny. It was
Hmm.
a fun
Yeah.
film. I think it did it good.
Yeah, I think it's so we're talking about "I'm Totally Fine," which is I haven't heard too much buzz about it, which is really sad because it is a very good film. It is
Hmm.
very funny, and like Kat said, it's very sad. It's has its very tender moments that have you just thinking about people you might have lost or what you would do if you lost someone. Has us exploring grief in a very specific way, and is also very funny and creative and like
Yeah.
just unique, and I think the biggest part of it is like the actors who are playing it really bringing it to life, like they had contributed to the script, and so that really helps
Mm.
with that because oof, it is some heavy stuff.
Yeah, and like most of the way through it, you're like questioning too, like how reliable is the narrator you think that they are, because it just like seems like, oh, that was a really weird ride if that's how you process grief. But also, like you are kind of wondering, like, huh, there's like little signs here and there that like, what if it's all just like this kind of grief ghost situation that we've talked about before on the show, where it's just like
Hmm.
you're still processing, so you're still seeing and like dealing with this loss, but in this way that's like really unique to that character, if that was all just like a dream of sorts.
Yeah, yeah, we all go through it our in the ways that make sense to us, and
Hmm.
in that, like, being forced into such a peculiar situation is the only way maybe she would have, you know,
Had
addressed some of those
Yeah.
issues, which is totally fair. And so I totally get that. And yeah, I found this film actually from Natalie Morales, her TikTok, because she had
Oh.
like a um she did an interview and someone translated that interview and then fed it through like another translation or like an AI thing, and then it came back and it was like really weird. I sent it to you. It sounded very clickbaity.
I
Um
believe you that you sent it to me, but my memory is a void.
Totally fine. Totally fair. It was just like a very funny interview because it was just like it's already a very ridiculous script because she plays an alien in it.
Hmm.
So the questions are just like totally out of the box and very
Hmm.
silly. And I was like, so what is this? And then I found the film and here we are.
Yeah, it was a really good film. It got me and Isaiah too, like because he came down like halfway through the film and like came in for like one of those like rare heavy moments in it,
Mm-hmm.
and we were both just like,
Oh no, yeah.
and he was like, "This film's good. I'm gonna watch it later." When since I was already like three-fourths of the way through, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's like especially for if you're going through grief right now, it's a good film to kind of just like face those emotions. Uh,
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
I think it achieved whatever its goal was in that regard.
Yeah. Yeah, like the premise is that this person lost their best friend from like childhood, and that's something that I identify like super intensely with. So it
Mhm.
was something where I was just like, "Oh boy, like I know exactly what that's like." Like to a degree, like we didn't start up our own like soda company or whatever, but
Yeah.
I did have this person that meant a lot to me and was gone unexpectedly, and it's such a unique like experience that really stays with you and can impact and like influence a lot of decisions that you make and the way that you handle other
Mhm.
situations. And so I was really thankful for like, as funny as it was, it never felt rude, right? Like it was never
Mhm.
like making fun of grief. It was never, making fun of people going through grief. And it also wasn't very heavy handed either. Like it wasn't like, this is about grief. We're going to be like a horror movie and be depressed about it. It was like kind of sweet moments of sadness, if that
Mhm.
makes sense.
Yeah, it looked it in its eyes and it was like, it's sad, but also you have to like find levity in those moments too, in a way that was like it felt like people who wrote it had gone through something similar or this exactly. That it was like a kind of healing piece of art
Hmm.
that they created in some way.
Yeah, because I think it's like, yeah, it is really sad to lose someone, but isn't it amazing that you had someone that you cared so much for that you could
Hmm.
feel this? Like, aren't
Yeah,
emotions amazing? Like,
yeah,
isn't that so not cool, but just like profound that we have them and we experience them in this very unique way, and um, that is a lot, right? Just being, in there and experiencing it that way.
yeah. I mean, that's like the beauty of being alive, I guess, is just like having the capacity to feel things and be sad and I don't know, just like feel in that really real and authentic way. Beautiful
Yeah.
existence, you know? That's the whole
Yeah,
point of being here.
exactly. To exist, and we're here for a good time, not a long time, in all our different ways, right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
Well, why don't I hop in? This may end up being a rather short episode, just because it's a pretty precise film. There's not a lot to really mess around with.
Yeah. Well, as the title says, it's totally fine, you know? So it's like one phrase off of what the title is.
Exactly. So I'm Totally Fine is from 2022, last year, and it is about Vanessa, a woman in mourning, takes a solo trip to clear her head after the death of her friend, but her self care vacation plans change when she's met with an out of this world situation. It's directed by Brandon Dermer and written by Alicia Ketry. And their kind of collaboration on this is really what made it as special as it is, I think.
Mm,
Them bringing in these different uh, experiences and just bringing it to life. And then also the contribution of the actors,
mhm,
Jillian Bell and Natalie Morales. So, um, what I'm Totally Fine is a really charming, simple film that explores grief, anxiety, and the weight of unresolved loss. And in it, we see Vanessa as she travels to a remote house for what was meant to be a celebration. Her and her best friend Jennifer had successfully secured a distribution deal for their organic soda that they had made together. Only
mm,
the day has taken a sour turn because Vanessa is alone and Jennifer is no longer with us. And and she like, bumbles about struggling through the fog and lethargy of loss while trying to cancel the party.
mhm,
It's kind of that like like you have these responsibilities and she's really trying to push to get to those. But you're also just like you don't want to move. Like you don't want to do it because
mhm.
then it's like final, right? Like having to cancel this party means that's real.
Yeah.
Jennifer's gone, you know?
Mhm,
And so she's struggling to cancel this party only to be told that she can't because she missed the deadline for cancellation and she is required to have a party, which is absurd. It's such a great opening scene. It is a very funny film. Like I thought it was going to be silly and it definitely is, but there are some truly just like absurd moments that I think the acting is what really drives it home. So fun. And so Vanessa parties alone. She pushes down her complicated emotions, a feeling of true loss paired with disappointment, resentment, and a sense of unfairness, which she kind of explores throughout the film. And Jennifer had left her here to pick up the pieces all alone. The morning after her drunken antics, after trying her best to party alone, she wakes and encounters Jennifer in the kitchen. And convinced that she's finally lost it and snapped at the loss of her lifelong best friend, she just like leaves. She just
She's
walks
like,
away.
no, I'm not gonna
Uh,
do this. We're not gonna deal with this right now.
and it's so like when she's kind of going back and forth, like Kat and I were talking about it too. It's just like I think I probably would be like, I have lost it. I
Yeah.
have. This is it. That was the final straw. Um,
Take me
like
away on my sweet escape. Like it's time
this
to
is
go.
it. I
Yeah.
gave it a good try. And this is I mean if that's like my turn into like losing any stability mentally is in
Mhm.
envisioning someone I lost just being there, leave me alone. Okay? Put me away
Yeah.
and I'll just hang out with them. What is the problem?
Yeah, just
Leave
like
me
let
be.
it be.
It's fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. Let
It's
me alone.
totally fine, Gabe.
I'm totally fine.
Yeah.
And so she just leaves, like she like walks out and she's like, okay, that was crazy. I'm just like still drunk. What's going on?
Yeah.
Grief is weird. And then, as like the moments go by, there's Jennifer again. Except this Jennifer is strange. Her words are clipped and robotic and like confused. And Vanessa learns that this is not Jennifer at all, but is instead an alien wearing her face.
As they do,
Um, and this is where Nellie is so funny. She's just like, "Please do not leave again." Her speech is just very hilarious.
Yeah, the
And
cadence.
yeah, the cadence is great, and it's just like the it's such like an alien thing to do and say. Like,
Yeah.
I have made you a drink. Um, and
Yeah, you
and
just never really finds like the cadence. Yeah, like it's just like always just like slightly off where you're like, you're not a person. And that's
yeah,
fine, but also like what is? I also enjoyed that both you and Isaiah said that I talk like that sometimes, and I was like, I enjoy that.
yes, you
That is
word's good.
fun. I words so well.
Yeah. So honestly, if an alien was there wearing your face, I would be like, "What are you talking about? They're normal."
Yeah. I
That is
don't
just cat.
know. Yeah, I don't know if this is any different. So
Like, do you not realize? I do not realize.
yeah, it seems pretty suspicious at that point.
Yeah. So
Practical joke, I guess. I don't know.
yeah. But apparently this Jennifer is an alien that has
Mhm.
been sent here to study Vanessa and her grief. And as a gift for participation, she gets to spend 2 days with her dead best friend,
Yeah.
which is nice. Turns out it's not actually 2 days, just spoilers, but she gets a long time. And
Yeah.
when you think about just that premise alone, like what if you could spend like a day with someone that you know is gone, that you didn't get to say goodbye to or like
Yeah.
resolve anything? Like that's
Yeah.
super heavy and just like a gift. Like on it, like it seems silly because it's like here is orientation for humans. This is like if you participate, you get to hang out with me. And it's like cool, yeah, I'm crazy, so whatever. But then you're like, wait,
Yeah.
that would be that would be really something. Like it's super emotional. And what happens throughout is a funny mix of scenes where Vanessa works to reason the situation away while they do all these like tests of her humanness. They're so silly. It's very goofy. It really just feels like two friends running around the house doing weird stuff.
Yeah.
Um, and it's a limited cast, so it's like super cool. But she, like Vanessa, works to create an explanation for every interaction, right? So in one scene, the alien wants to know how well she can swim and hold her breath, and Vanessa thinks, oh yeah, because me and Jennifer had been in swim club, so my
Yeah.
brain is inventing this situation to cope with my grief.
Yeah.
Like she's really trying. She's like,
We're
Okay.
making connections. It's
Grief is
like that.
hard.
Yeah.
Cutting myself some slack in like the cheapest way possible kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it's not until alien Jennifer reveals information that Vanessa was never supposed to know. Once the secret was confirmed, one Jennifer had sworn to take to the grave and technically did,
Yeah.
that Vanessa realizes this may not be a hallucination after all, because there's no way that she
Yeah.
knew that, right? she,
Yeah.
and so deciding to take advantage of the alien Jennifer, they share more secrets, emotions, and memories. And alien Jennifer is quick to confirm Vanessa's memories, letting her know that Jennifer loved you a lot, or Jennifer lied to you to protect your feelings. And it's this kind of confirmation. And it's also something that you kind of do when you're exploring grief yourself, right? You're reminding yourself of who that person was and what they meant to you, and that
Yeah.
you got to keep on living because that's what they would want you to do. It's definitely the
Yeah.
stages of grief, because she definitely starts with like confusion and then like anger, goes through all the steps. And we've talked about grief many times, and it does
Yeah.
look different for everyone. For this person it looks like an alien. So um yeah, it's super super fun and sad.
Yeah.
Very sad. It's like it's hard because you're like
Oh, yeah.
oh. So just be
Yeah.
prepared for that. But throughout this adventure, Vanessa is forced to confront her loss, but more importantly, her reluctance to feel and explore her grief, because the whole time she's been playing it cool. I'm totally fine. So she
Mhm.
is pushed forward, working to convince her boyfriend and herself that she is okay, that she is totally fine. But alien Jennifer reveals the truth, that she's far from okay and hasn't been for a long time, even before Jennifer left. There were some issues that she has to work through, considering like anxiety and control issues, learning to let go and just breathe, and chill. So um Vanessa feels cheated, like her person was stolen unexpectedly and too soon. And a bizarrely kind but rude stranger later questions her about her business agreement, asking if they had had a mortality clause in their contract. And of course they didn't, because no one's expecting mortality to rear its ugly head in such a sudden and cruel way.
Mhm.
Like Jennifer was very young, and it was an ailment that they never would have caught, um just
Yeah.
given the way that life was. And of course you think of all kinds of excuses or
Like what ifs
what
and
ifs, like had I done this then she could have insurance and she would have went. And it's like, from what I know of Jennifer, I don't think she was going to the doctor
yeah.
regardless of insurance. So but it's like throughout her interaction with the alien Jennifer, and then also with um the stranger, she's like having to kind of confirm all those things that she's been hiding.
Mhm.
And as Vanessa forms a connection with alien Jennifer, learning to not only accept the emotions she has as a human, but to appreciate them, learning that our emotions make us unique and powerful and truly human. And after losing Jennifer again, this time in the form of an alien visitor, Vanessa finally admits that she's not totally fine, but that's okay,
Yeah.
which is very strong, like a very
Mhm.
strong thing to get to, right? Um,
Yeah.
and what I found, like when we were watching it, like Kat and I talked about this too, is like there's a limited cast. Harvey Guillen is in there, adorable as ever. As their
Mhm.
DJ, he DJs for them like solo, and it's so cute. Like they're just dancing together. It's such a great scene, and he's
Yeah,
like,
it even shows, like, some range from him too, because it's like I never and ever would imagine him being a DJ and, like, having him play that role so well. I was like, "Wow, he's just a really good actor."
yeah, he's like fun and cute, and he's just like, getting to it. So I loved that. I just love anything he's in. But it's also just like it's all very heavily related to these actors and the small team making this happen. And what I found interesting was like the motivation for the film and some of the other parts. So I wanted to talk about kind of the making of the film, some like outside of just the film situation things. And in an interview that Kat found, thank you, with director Brandon Dermer on Odyssey KRLD News Radio, titled "I'm Totally Fine," puts a comedic spin on grief. The director explains his inspiration for the film, saying it was 2020. Like everyone, the rug was pulled out from under us. For me, my anxiety is such, and the pandemic obviously was like the uncertainty cranked up to 11. Like every day we were learning something new. It was really stressful. And I started to realize that the moment I stopped trying to control this thing that was out of my control, out of everyone's control, I could be a little bit more happy and present. I wanted to sort of synthesize that feeling into a story in a way that, in an alien, something that is most foreign, out of this world concept, because that's what it felt like we were living through.
Mhm.
Um, an out of world concept. But as I said, one of the most interesting parts of the film was how stripped down it was, featuring minimal locations. It's mostly just the house and the roads near the house.
Mhm.
That's pretty much it. There's a few characters, one of which, Vanessa's boyfriend, is only ever seen through a video call. Like
Mhm.
that's it. There's like three, four, because Harvey. So like four people that we see on
Mhm.
screen, like in person. And the film was shot in just 10 days, which is really cool. And I think we
Yeah.
learn like to value these limited productions, especially during COVID times, because it's like, oh, we can do this. Like we can rely more on like person stories than just like cool effects and location situations.
Yeah.
Um, and really, originally, just fun fact, Dermer intended for actor Gillian Bell to play Jennifer, the alien. But when she read the script, she felt much more attached to Vanessa because, as Derman explains, the actress Bell had lost her father 10 years ago, and she knew exactly, beat by beat, what we were viewing following the stages of grief.
Mm.
And so that influenced the way that she, you know, was acting and like changing up the script.
Mhm.
For Morales, they would adjust it to kind of fit her cadence and the way that she talked and what she thought would be appropriate for this alien. So that's kind of fun.
Mhm.
I love a collaborative environment. And I just found that, like, losing someone is such a specific and traumatic event that sticks with you. And so Vanessa's grief felt personal and relatable, and something that I really appreciated. Like, it
Mhm.
wasn't over the top dramatic, it wasn't shouting at us about our pain, but instead was that reserved grief that we face alone in the dark of night when everyone else has gone to sleep and left us with our thoughts, worries, and regrets. And you're
Mhm.
just like staring at a wall. And you're just like,
Yeah.
uh oh, I was quiet for too long and now here they
The
come.
thoughts are here. Yeah, you can't escape it when you're by yourself. And that's like one of the biggest things that honestly, like I know in my experience, but I've also heard like other people talk about is that like when you finally stop moving and you have no one to distract you, it all kind of sneaks up in a very real way. And you just
Hmm.
have to deal with it.
Yeah. And then you're like stuck, like, oh, I wasn't ready to do that. And it's like, you were never going to be ready to do that.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's going to happen now or it's going to happen at some point. You're going to
Yeah.
have to deal with it. And I think, like, that's why I just really, like, she spends so much of this time in the film. And it's just her in this house. And like,
Mhm.
you could see she's like distracting herself. You can see parts of where her anxiety comes through that I also very much like related to just in regular life. Like her
Mhm.
having to, like, losing Jennifer and losing the time that she felt was guaranteed with this friend,
Mhm.
had her realizing like how much of her life she is losing because she's so caught up in her anxiety and worries and concerns and need for control. Like she
Mhm.
just keep like she was like, oh, we could have secured this deal a long time ago, but I held this back because I wanted to make sure of things. It's like, oh, they could have been celebrating this a long time ago. Oh, they could have already had like health insurance. Like there's all these things that like she was holding herself back from because we have this perceived idea that like we have infinite time and we don't. And
Mhm.
so that just felt very real to me, and just like the way that she was like compartmentalizing like her grief until it was like,
Mhm.
hi, I am your grief here to to talk
Yeah.
to you in the in the flesh. And she's like, oh god.
Yeah, I'm not ready. Please
This
stop.
is what happens when you don't talk about your feelings. You make them up, and now there's an alien in my house.
Yeah.
Um, but Vanessa's desperation to hold on to alien Jennifer felt really raw and real. Um, I was like, oh, I get it.
Yeah.
Oh, that hurt really bad because it was like seeing her if she had had the opportunity to
Mhm.
predict. what was going to happen to Jennifer. And so, with her attempts to keep the alien friend, even this pale imitation of her longest and best of friends, here with her was a feeling that I could sit with and I could relate to. And for director Derner, he has hopes for the impact of this film, hoping that it inspires us to value the time that we do have, especially during these uncertain times, as we've been told to refer to them. And he said, we really hope that this movie inspires people to like reach out to someone maybe you haven't, because life is short and precious. And like every morning, it's really hard to remember that in the midst of this crazy world we live in.
Mhm.
Um, and I relate.
Yeah.
Super core for it. So
Yeah. And the pandemic did that a lot too, though. We're like forced to slow down in a way that we hadn't previously and be like, oh, wow, I have a family. You're so right. I should have talked to them. But
yeah.
capitalism has you going to work every day. And that's like the most important thing because you need money to survive. So you like end up, unfortunately, neglecting relationships that you
Hmm.
otherwise like kind of wanted to because you like think like, well, it's fine. Next month, I'll really talk to people. Next month, I'll have the energy to be there for the people I care about. And it's like, that's not how stuff works,
Hmm.
sadly.
Yeah.
So,
It's also like, the pandemic really forced people to slow down. Like, I
mhm,
personally know that. Like, I mean, I still do a bunch of things, but it took me a while before I could build up even to where I am now. I was always constantly moving, moving, moving. And it
mhm,
took like that forcing me to stop to be like, wait a second. I should have been
yeah,
doing this a long time ago. And you learn to like reevaluate things that matter. You find like joy in like other parts of life because you're not just like, let me just go, 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 do, deal
yeah,
with my stuff. And you can now like have these intimate relationships.
yeah. And that's also like, everyone's like, we need to get back to normal. And it's like, normal wasn't work. Normal was bad. Normal
Never
sucked.
didn't do it. Yeah.
Normal was just like survival mode. And that's not how we should be in all the time. But yeah, I really appreciated this film and like the way that it showcased grief in a I don't know, in a way that you can't escape from it, and that's, like, really real. And that they
Mm-hmm.
had to go through this party because I was, like, very much like, you have to keep going in life, and, like, when you're dealing with grief, like, very recently, like, you don't get to just, like, sit there and grieve. You have to if you just are, like, inheriting stuff, you have to do the estate, you have to plan a funeral. You
Mm-hmm.
have to throw the party. The party is the funeral also, like,
Mm-hmm.
you have
Mm-hmm.
to do all those things.
Got to
You
do
don't
the
get to
paperwork.
stop. Yeah. You have to call the lawyers. You got to do all these like steps that no one teaches you how to do. And then like that whole like agreement in there too is like everyone should make a will.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Everyone. As someone who's recently gone through make a will, you need to. It's just like, and that's like how they didn't have the clause because she was young. It's like
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day, you need to set yourself up so that people who are mourning you have ability to do that. When you put up these like securities, you give them more time to just like kind of sit and stare at it and be like, dang, this is hard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well,
So,
I think like, another thing of the pandemic is that it forced us to see our mortality, right? Like
mhm,
like all of a sudden people had to get really real about the potential to lose people that we loved, and there's
yeah,
2 going on 3 years in which people were, you know, losing people, and it was all
mhm,
unexpected. And so we had to do that. And I think, and we've talked about this too, this kind of like how we don't really, as a American culture, don't have a good relationship with death and
yeah.
with losing people and like understanding what, like, because it very much is like, okay, we pick up and we have to put it behind you now, uh
You
and
just
you
have to
move
keep
on.
going. You gotta go, go, go. You can't stop. You can't look at it.
Yeah.
You never are able to stop. That's like the entire thing.
Yeah, and you can't think
Um,
about it either. Like, we can't, because it's such a negative thing. Like, you don't want to be forgotten. You don't want to, so you don't want to think about the potential that that could happen to you or to someone you love. So then we don't take those precautions instead of like other countries where, they have entire festivals or celebrations or anniversaries or just traditions where you are inviting these people that you
mhm,
lost back into your life and like celebrating their life even after death, and like having that in there allows you to have like a better understanding of or appreciation for like what your life is now, and also prepare for what is going to happen to all of us.
yeah.
One of us.
Not looking at the death is also like something that's like really hard because it's like, there are other cultures that have different death practices that are very like closure
Mhm.
bringing, and
Mhm.
that we don't really have that here. And I still like viscerally remember like when my grandpa had passed, like someone just being like, you gotta, I understand what you're going through or whatever, but like you have to get it together because like
Yeah.
you have to work. And I was like, I remember being like so shook by that because I was
Yeah.
like 20, I don't know. And I was just like, no,
Mhm.
absolutely not. And I was like, well, you're right. Damn, I do gotta do this. And it's like you really just never get to like heal from it. It elongates the grieving process because you never really get to stop and look at it and be like, oh,
Mhm.
'cause you're forced to keep going in a way that like is not present in some other cultures, you know? And it's like kind
Yeah.
of cruel the way America
It
does
is.
grieving practices and death.
Yeah, and it's like it's
Yeah.
because also it's like even with family, right? Like if it's not a direct family person, like then you get zero sympathy. And it's like, okay,
Mhm.
that person was like family because family's not the only thing that matters. Okay. Like sometimes we have people in our lives who matter more or equal to what our family would mean. And if they're gone, we have the same amount of grief. We have the same amount of mourning that we have to do. And you're like, oh, that was a friend of the family. They don't count. You can't take off work. It's like,
Yeah.
are you get what? Like this person was here and is not here anymore. That's a lot of stuff we got to
Yeah.
go through. You just want me to come in and
Yeah, and I mean,
function
people don't want it
normal.
for even if it is like your dad or like your direct
Yeah.
person, you know, like whoever it is, they don't care anyway. Like a lot of
Mhm.
times, there are jobs that like are nice and do care, but
Mhm.
it's rare.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it could be like your literal best friend in the entire world. They're like, well, okay, do we have to give you these bereavement days? And it's like legally, yes, but not everyone knows, you know, like what kind of protections you do have, even if it is like a close family member.
Mhm.
um the
Yeah.
company, it's like insurance companies, they like don't want to give it to you, so
Mhm.
you like really got to advocate for yourself, and like that's cruel in of itself because when you're grieving you don't really have the mental capacity to do that because
Mhm.
you're just like, I just want to stop. I don't want to do any
Yeah.
of this. Why are you making me have to think? That's even worse. Like, yeah,
Yeah. That's why
Americans
it's
for us
like
at the end of the day.
our PSA for this episode for our show today is to get life insurance, to make a will, regardless of your age and how infinite you think you're going to live. Have those preparations, be quick to update them as your life changes and grows.
Yeah.
Um, and also, appreciate the people that are here while they're here is a big
Mhm.
motivational point as well, in valuing like our emotions on that scale.
Yeah.
But also like when people are gone, I say like, try to find some of your own traditions or your own practices that you can have to continue to have them in your life and in some way if that like is something that would bring you joy.
Yeah. And yeah, at the end of the day, people just need to have more empathy. So like I do think the pandemic and COVID also like brought loss to people in a way that they had not experienced before, where like a lot of people experienced it. It was like a mass loss event. So like more people were forced into having to understand what loss was and like
Hmm.
build that kind of empathy. And hopefully that ends up doing positive things. And that like people are like, oh, I also have lost someone. So now I feel more empathy for this person who is in front of me dealing with that. Uh,
I'd
here's
like to
hoping.
think so, but there's so many people who are like, no.
I have
People who
only
aren't
had
taking care of
experience
each
with,
other,
yeah,
like not wearing a
yeah,
mask. Like how hard
yeah,
are people like, I don't care, you don't feel safe.
yeah, yeah.
I wish,
I
but
wish too.
people
Yeah,
be
you're so
people
right.
in.
People be people, and it's like, okay, I'm gonna get into that because in my section I'm talking about animals and how they experience grief, and that we're not that unique. Everyone just needs to like, we're not that special and unique as humans. Animals also have the capacity to show grief, so we're not that separate. And I think the fact that we try to like superiorize ourselves and like separate
Mhm.
ourselves to the extent that we do is like why we have such a hard time feeling empathy for each other.
Uh,
It's like we're not that different from every other animal that exists. So
wow.
yeah, crazy. And yeah, so as you're saying, dealing with loss and sudden loss especially can be extremely hard to process. We've talked about this in previous episodes and explored how grief is not linear as an experience, nor does it always follow the stages of grief as if you Google grief, they're like, here are the
Yeah.
stages of grief. And you're like, okay, but like, what if I experience it differently? And it's like, that's totally fine. No one, it's not linear. You can be fine for 10 years and then you see someone that kind of looks like that person and you're crying in a Starbucks.
Yep.
So it really, you don't know. You just kind of go. You go about life and that's just what it is. So in Totally Fine, we're given like a window into this experience as Vanessa's dealing with this and like quirky aliens wearing your friend's skin time. And it's fairly emotional and funny, but as I kind of said, I've been dealing with this very recently, so I'm not going to get big sad today. We're going to talk about something fun.
Mm, totally fine and allowed.
Yeah. So since we've talked about grief previously, I wasn't exactly sure what I was going to end up talking about, but then Gabe had the great idea. What if we talked about animals that are experiencing grief?
Yeah.
That's what we're gonna do. And I was like really surprised by the information I was able to get. I was like, oh, that's actually super interesting. So yeah, instead of getting big sad here, we're going to talk about why aliens would want to investigate humans, or why we think that, like why we think we're so cool, and how animals experience grief. Because I don't know, I feel like maybe aliens would come here and then they'd probably like talk to people other than just people.
Mhm.
They would talk to all the species that live on our planet because we're not that special.
Yeah. If they could
Um,
talk to us, they would be figure out a way to talk to dolphins. And they'd be like,
Yeah,
"What the heck?"
100%. That's what mermaids are. Those are the underwater humans. They're just as gross as we are, and
They're
also
yeah,
smart,
scary.
complex, sad, whatever. Like every creature on this planet has the capacity for emotions, even trees. Like when
Yeah.
trees are dying,
Yes.
they give all their nutrients to the surrounding trees as a send off. And then all the other trees are like, oh my God, now we have more nutrients because that tree sacrificed itself. That, if
Yeah.
that is an emotional something, I don't know.
They let out like plants let out like vibrations if they feel threatened. Like that's super
Yeah,
real.
the happening might happen one day. And
It could
I'm
happening
It could happening.
to us.
Even if it's a very ridiculous movie that is like
Yeah. That you
famously
love so
not
much.
liked. I love that film because I see nature as alive. So
Mhm.
here we are. As you can see, as we're going into this, I already have a preconceived bias. So take that as you will. So I read an article called "Do Animals Experience Grief?" A growing body of evidence points to how animals are aware of death and will sometimes mourn or ritualize their dead, by Jessica Pierce.
So cool.
They kind of go into this really interesting analysis of humanity and how there's a reason why we don't study the way animals mourn very much. And it's because we think we're hot stuff and are better than everything, because that's like our only way of rationalizing our existence. And that's fine, whatever people got to do to experience life. What is interesting to me about this article is the attention drawn to the skepticism of human scientists at the possibility that animals experience grief. And it seems that many feel that to admit animals experience grief would lower the status of humans and eliminate the one thing that makes us truly unique. And like to that, I say, like, we make robots and science stuff. Like that makes us unique too. I don't see squirrels doing that. So like why does it have to be emotional empathy that makes us the most unique thing? It's like it could
Yeah.
be that we like built stuff and that's cool too.
Yeah.
Uh but we don't have to have the superiority complex game where we're like, we're not even going to look at it, because if we realize that animals have the capacity to feel, that like we're going to have to feel bad for all the animals we murdered.
Yep.
But here we are. It's stated in the article that the reason there's so little research about animal grief is because humans are not yet ready to look at the possibility that we're not so different. Scientists haven't yet turned serious attention to the study of what might be called comparative than thanatology, which is the study of death practices and those things associated with it. And this is perhaps because most humans fail to even entertain the possibility that animals might care about the death of those they love. Awareness of mortality has remained, for many scientists and philosophers alike, a bastion of human perceived uniqueness.
Yeah.
To accept that animals have the capacity to grieve and mourn in a way that is as complex as humans would have many implications and would impact humanity's overall feeling of superiority. It is also one of the main things that is embedded into the definition of what it means to be human, humanity, or personhood. The capacity to feel complex emotions and grief is what people claim as their humanity. that puts them above animals. And it would make sense then that scientists would be hesitant to even explore the possibility of such emotions existing in animals. But some have. So that's what I'm going to get into. There are scientists that have explored this, and the ones that are skeptical about the capacity of animal emotion are basically like, we can't admit that this is real. And also, it's like, it's all based on human interpretation, and that is valid. We're applying our own understandings, biases, and emotional feelings onto these animals. We can't read their minds. We don't have the ability to communicate with them in the ways that would give us these answers. So it is like interpretation, but that is kind of what science is.
Yeah.
You're looking at something, you're making a hypothesis, and you're trying to prove it.
Yep.
So here we are.
There.
The article continues to outline a few animal species that have or seem to have rituals or emotional and physical responses to loss. This includes elephants, chimpanzees, magpies, peccaries, which is a type of wild pig, and crows, as well as other animals that I found in other articles. So, other animals that have been shown evidence of grief that aren't highlighted in that specific article are also dogs, cats, dolphins, giraffes, possibly turtles, bison, and various bird species,
Hmm.
specifically ducks. Um,
Hmm.
I love ducks, so that is lovely for me. It seems many animals have the capacity to react to death in ways that are not fully understood by humans, and that they hold some form of funeral or mourning in response. They've also studied the brains and like neural responses
Hmm.
of, I believe, chimps and other animals, specifically to see if cortisol and stress hormones are released during the experience of grief, and like how that impacts their physiology, like how their
Hmm.
bodies respond, because that's like what it means to grieve, is that you're having an internal response, and then mourning is your like external acting of that
Hmm.
response. So they do have indications that would suggest that animals do have the capacity to react to death in ways that are physical and emotional and also outward, in that they hold rituals that suggest like funerals and stuff like that. We don't know if that's exactly what they're doing, but it looks like it. So, we're interpreting how we see. And it seems that animals experience both inward grief and outward mourning. The article outlines instances of this, specifically with elephants and their response to loss. They say that elephants, for example, are known to take great interest in the bones of their deceased and to mourn dead relatives. One of these vivid ritual explorations of bones was caught on video in 2016 by a doctoral student studying elephants in Africa. That members of three different elephant families came to visit the body of a deceased matriarch, smelling and touching and repeatedly passing by the corpse.
Oh,
There's
wow.
also instances of them mourning like the loss of a baby elephant,
Mhm.
and having similar like care for the body, and like trying to rationalize what has taken place, and that there's like evidence that they've had rituals of like mourning surrounding that. And it's also like the care that's given to the body, specifically by like mother elephants, like
Mhm.
mourning the loss of their babies, that they like stay with the body and take care of it even after the loss of life.
Mhm.
Chimpanzees are also said to have a response to grief and mourning. This can be seen by like the presumed care that the chimps will like exhibit towards the corpse, as well as like through anger. So it really depends on like what the relationship was, or the like cause of death. Uh, that impacts how they deal with their grief or loss. And their healing from the loss stems from their social relationships with other chimpanzees, specifically like through time and interacting with other chimps. They actually did like a testing of their cortisol release, and then it goes down over time. And the more they interact with other chimps to like as distractions and like community care kind of thing.
Mhm.
So, chimpanzees have also been repeatedly observed in engaging in death related behaviors. In one case, a small group of captive chimpanzees was carefully observed after one of their members, an elderly female named Pansy, died. The chimpanzees checked for Pansy's body for signs of life and cleared bits of straw from her fur. They refused to go to the place where Pansy had died for several days afterward. And in
Hmm.
a different article titled The Truth About Animal Grief, they speak about Jane Goodall's witnessing of the young chimps presumably dying of a broken heart after the passing of
Oh.
their mother. And they say that a most dramatic case in 1972, Jane Goodall witnessed a young male chimp named Flint die just a month after the death of its mother, Flo. The male was so despondent following her death that he stopped eating or socializing to the point that he just simply did not survive.
Hmm.
In another instance, scientists documented a chimpanzee using a tool to clean a corpse in 2017. Specifically, a team of primate researchers in Zambia filmed a mother using a piece of dried grass to clean debris from the teeth of her deceased son. The implication being that, according to scientists, that chimpanzees continue to feel social bonds even after death and feel some sensitivity towards dead bodies of loved chimps lost. There's lots of indication that mammals specifically experience this the most. And there are
Hmm.
countless other examples of animals exhibiting mourning rituals that suggest that humans are not the only species to be able to experience grief or complex emotions. And the question that follows is, if animals have the capacity for complex emotions, would we be the first choice of aliens to study when visiting our planet? And I say no. I also found like other instances where they discuss like crows, like literally having funerals,
Hmm.
or
Hmm.
having like it could be interpreted as a funeral in that they like surround the body and like caw around it.
Hmm.
But they've also said that it could be that they're investigating the murder because they're like, oh, there's so much happening. We got to make sure that everyone else is still safe. So maybe it's not mourning as like a funeral, but it could be that they're like investigating what happened to figure out if the area that they're in is still safe, which both are like pretty complex as
Yeah.
reactions.
Investigating
Um,
the murder of a member of their murder.
exactly. And yeah, so there's examples of magpies burying their dead under twigs and grass, which they've described as a funeral. There's also where an 8-year old boy caught footage of peccaries, which is the wild pig, that responded to their dead herd mate and like basically visited the body repeatedly, nuzzling it, biting it, as well as sleeping next to it to figure out what was
Mm.
going on. There's evidence that ducks have the capacity to mourn their losses. There was like an incident, or not incident, an instance of a duck laying on the body of one of its lost loved ones for 2 days, just like laying on it,
Mm.
just like not understanding that it was gone. So it's, and then like there's like countless stories of dogs and cats doing this, like not being able to be removed from like the bodies of owners and being
Mhm.
like really sad or depressed, or even like cats cuddling with the toys or favorite sleeping spot of a other cat that had
Mhm.
passed, and like expressing grief symptoms and mourning outwardly. So yeah, I don't know, I just thought that was really interesting to see that there are many animals that have the capacity to like mourn people,
Mhm.
and that, you know, if that's like our claim to fame, maybe that shouldn't be, because it seems like we're not the only animal with the capacity to feel grief and sadness.
Mhm.
And
Because
also
isn't that
whales, I
fascinating?
think, also had a instance of that where they like carried the dead calf for like weeks, just like with
Mhm.
them. Um,
Yeah. Well, I mean, from the documentary Blackfish,
mhm.
there's like a whole exploration of that. Like whales feel more emotions than humans. Like it's they have like specific emotions that we just don't have words for or understanding of, and it's very complex. And it was just like this really heartbreaking thing for them to be so emotionally evolved and be in captivity and like feel loss and like it was it's specifically talking about like when they would take the babies to put them into SeaWorld and the moms would like even when they were taken from in during captivity, if a mom had a baby and they took the baby, the mom would just like stop eating and just like cry, like just wail, the whale would wail, and
Mhm.
like, injure itself because it was just so distraught. And it's like, yeah, they definitely
Yeah,
do.
they have the capacity for emotions and loss and grieving, and that's not our only. We're not that cool. That's all.
No.
That's all I feel.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that like to not look at it is very convenient, and that's why people don't. They're like, oh, it'd be really inconvenient to have to take accountability for all that murder.
Hmm.
I don't
Yeah.
think we're gonna do that. I
Yeah.
really like chicken nuggets, so, you
Well, that's
know?
why, like, the book Tender is the Flesh I told you about, Cat. That was
Yeah.
like a really big popular thing because people were like, "Oh, it's just so horrific," and absolutely it is. Like, I'm not saying it's not. It is very horrific, but there was so much of it that I was like, it's not like I'm already horrified about these things happening to animals. That when you like the twist is like we now are doing this to humans, and now people care, right?
Well, that's the
Now we're
entire
like,
thing of Promise Neverland too, where it's like,
yeah.
"Oh, now humans are the cattle."
Oh, now
Yes.
we have to care. Or like
Yeah.
the that clone film, uh
Oh, The
The
Island.
Island.
Yes, I loved
Yeah.
that movie growing up.
Yeah. That was like
Yes.
our first or second video episode was about the island,
Yeah.
and talking about clones. But yeah, it's literally like you switch out these practices that we have with animals like slaughterhouses or just like complete disrespect and abuse of animals, and you just swap it out with a person. Now all of a sudden people are
Oh,
like,
suddenly we
wait.
care, yeah.
And then it's also
Oh.
like we also treat people pretty badly too. And then you're like, okay,
Oh,
swap it
yeah,
out with
yeah,
someone you
yeah.
care about, and now you
Any
care. Like,
any zombie scenario is like, "Oh, yeah, remember how awful humans are."
yeah.
You don't even need zombies for humans to be awful. War,
Mm,
genocide, and
yeah.
there's a long
Just
list. Just
existing.
existing. Yeah.
Yeah, just
Capitalism, patriarchy,
yeah, all of
um,
it.
all of it.
Yeah.
There's just so much humans being trash, and it's just like, yeah, they have to act like we're better in
Mhm.
order to rationalize, like, what the world is, and it's
Yeah.
like, no, maybe it's just like, we aren't that great, and that's
Yeah.
okay.
But
It's
even
your
in
responsibility to be good. You have to make
yeah.
good choices. It's a choice. It's an active
Yeah.
effort. It's
Yeah.
not inherent.
And yeah, like kind of going off of like this idea of like we're not special, animals do it too, is like even in our cruelty, like the things that we do that are really evil, animals also do evil things.
Oh,
Like
100%.
dolphins are
Yeah.
like super evil,
Dolphins?
otters super evil. Like otters are like the
Mhm.
most evil. They're so cute, absolutely cute, very evil.
Yeah.
So you like see these things and it's like we're not even, that's not even unique to us. Like we're not even cool for that. But the whole like we can make things, like we can build, but it's like
Yeah.
beavers build really cool stuff all the time. We're not that cool, man. Like,
Yeah. We're just another animal on this planet.
yeah,
And does that suck that hard? I don't think it does. I think it just means
no,
like, cool, be good to the planet.
yeah,
Be good to the
put
people
some
around you.
respect.
Be good to the animals. Just
Yeah,
don't be made of garbage. It's a
don't
wild
be an
concept.
otter.
Yeah. And it's yeah, it's just like you have to actively make good choices to be a good person, and that's fine.
Yeah.
That's if anything, that makes the most sense.
Like that's literally all you can control. That's it.
Yeah.
Okay, this nurture versus nature situation. It's like
Yeah. And if you were
be
awful
good.
yesterday, be good tomorrow. I don't know.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
All you
There's
can
no
do.
like black and white about that, you know?
Yeah.
But
Existence
yes.
is hard.
It's very I'm really glad that you went into animals and their grief because I think it's an interesting topic, and I like this idea that like if aliens came, they probably like Vanessa was probably one of many creatures that
Mhm.
these alien species that we don't know the name of,
We're
we don't even know
investigating.
what Jennifer's real name is, like the alien her,
Mhm.
is just it's like, whoa, like we
Yeah.
don't have emotions, but have you seen these chickens? Like they have a whole thing, you know, like, and I think that's like pretty rad and an interesting kind of step into grief and what like the pedestal that we can put it on too.
Yeah.
It's not that unique. Losing someone
Yeah.
is sad, no matter who and what you are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'd be hard, you know?
It's totally fine to not be totally fine.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's the thesis of the movie.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, you're not fine, and you gotta be not fine sometimes. And that's how you get better, is
hmm
dealing with the fact that you're not fine. You gotta look at it. Otherwise, you're just going and going and going, and eventually you have all this unresolved stuff and you hurt people by accident.
hmm
So,
Yeah. And it like you said, it looks different for everyone too. I remember when I lost my grandfather, like it didn't really hit me until I was like weeks later and I was at school and
mm,
I heard a laugh that kind of sounded like his laugh and I lost it. And I was like, whoa,
yeah.
wait,
I
I've
was
not went through
fine.
this.
Yeah, we were good. What do you mean?
I was like, oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
Ouch.
Yeah. No, it's like so complex and there's just so many different ways. Like there's no universal way to go through it. So you just gotta go through it however you go through it. And you're a crylat probably. Either now or in 20 years. I don't know.
Mhm.
You're
Or
gonna
you're however
experience
you do
it
it,
though.
you know?
Yeah. You're gonna punch some stuff, that's fine. As long
Yeah.
as it's not a human, I guess. Or an animal.
Mhm.
Don't do that. Walls
Punch
are
a
cool.
wall. Yeah.
Punch some
Punch a
walls.
wall, whatever. Destroy property, that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it'd be like what isn't that what happened with where the red fern grows? Didn't like one dog go and lay or just went away to die or something because another dog died? It's been a long time. That was middle school I read that, but I feel like that's what happened.
Yeah. Like that is like a thing.
Yeah.
Lots isolating is a common thing too. And that's like something that inhibits your healing as well.
And that's what
Um,
she did. She was like, "Yeah, I'll go to this house
I'm
all by
totally fine. No one
myself."
talks about it. I'm just gonna go over here far away.
Yeah, and when, like, the sister like, when she called, Jennifer's sister and Jennifer was like, "How are you doing?" Like, trying to, like, talk to her, she
Yeah.
immediately shut it off, like, "I do not want to do that," and then, like, like, "We're not," and it's like, "No, no, no, hun."
Yeah.
Like, her sister probably needs you too, because like, no one's gonna feel the same things, or at least close
Yeah.
enough than her sister, because you were like her sister, so
Yeah. It was
but
a
I get
really
it, I
real
get it.
movie. You watch it, you'll probably feel a lot of things. And if you feel ready for that, do it.
Yeah.
Because I would recommend it. It was a good movie.
Mhm.
Even if I was like, oh, I feel uncomfortable, that I feel sadness.
Yeah.
I don't want to feel this way right now. I was having a good Saturday or whatever day it was when we watched it. But it's okay. You just got to feel it sometimes. Got to let it
Oh, I'm sorry.
come in, go out. You felt it too. It's fine.
I did.
That's
I
what
was
life is.
tearing up. It was the whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do it. Highly recommend the film. And let us know what you think. Give us, rate and review as you do. Let us know in the comments how you feel about the film. If you seen a film that's similar to this, if you have some facts about animals and grief, we'd love to hear about those.
Yeah.
Um, anything like that. And stay tuned. We have one more episode in our Tainted Love series, and then we're on to the next thing because
That's what we
days
do.
start coming and they don't stop coming. They don't
They
stop
don't stop
coming.
coming. They don't.
Don't
They just,
stop
they just
coming
keep go.
is what is
Yeah.
until
You
they do. And then you're like,
You
oh,
wake up and you're
dang
just
it.
like, wow, okay, we gotta go. And then just stops eventually, as you said, Kate. Yes.
Yeah.
One day
Yeah.
you're just not no more. And you're
Yeah.
just like, oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
where you go after? I don't know. We'll figure it out. That's for later
Whatever.
me to deal with.
All I know is what I'm doing right now. So
Yeah.
it's all I can guarantee. So prepare now for the future because we're all going to do it. Okay. We're
Yeah.
all sorry. All right. You're
Yeah.
not
And I mean, it's a
unique.
kindness for the people you got otherwise to prepare for it.
Hmm.
You know? And if you don't like those people, fine, don't do it. I don't care. No, it's not. I mean, but like, if if you want it to be a better time, the
Yeah.
government is coming for your resources. Otherwise, they make it really hard. So, highly recommend making a will. It's just
Yes.
a cool thing.
All right. Well, don't get married.
Don't eat your kids.
Yep. Okay. Bye.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's it. I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.